Opportunity to be here, and I'll just say that I'm actually an OBGYN as well, and I do fertility work, so I look after women, and I do research in reproductive aging, fertility, and the whole spectrum. So today I just want to share something that's close to heart, because long time ago, when I was doing my PhD training, I was really looking at understanding why women have to undergo this process called aging, especially oocytes, and then these oocytes unfortunately go through a phase of, irreversible phase that it doesn't get any better. It just, numbers go down, quality goes down, and every time when I see a woman now, it's like, oh, you're at this age and your eggs are not good, the number of eggs is not great, so I have nothing much to tell them because there's really nothing much out there in the market or for me to treat these women. And so another important thing that we're not just talking about fertility, it's actually the importance of the ovaries in a woman, which is, I agree with AthenaDAO say the ovaries, for ensuring reproductive longevity for women's healthy longevity. So this is a story that I want to share and say more, because on the contrary, in our part of the world, in Asia, and if you don't know where Singapore is, it's this tiny little place, I'll show you a little bit later, that there is this declining fertility, all over in the Asian megacities, and that is really sad, because in 2021, just a few years back, this was world news, because now Asia becomes into the news whereby we are producing less babies and our total fertility rate has dropped and are the top 3 in the world. And importantly, this is the diagram I want to show you that despite everything that you see here in the global world, so this is on this color code here, you see that blue is actually those that's below replacement, total fertility rate of 2.0. You see the rest of the world, which unfortunately I think this slide cover it, but what is happening is that the rest of the world is all in blue, so we're all way below fertility replacement rate, and the world where it's mostly orange and whatnot are actually countries in Africa and a bit of Latin America as well. But the projection is that throughout the rest of the world, until the 22nd century, everyone is declining. The world is declining, the birth rates are dropping. And this is something that I feel very strongly about, because, so what if the fertility rates drop? We're not going to have more children, and then my aging colleagues who are doing the aging research will be like, doesn't matter, we're too many human beings anyway, we just need to live well and long and healthy. But I want to share a story from Singapore. So we are Asian, multi-ethnic Asians, we have Chinese, we have Malays, we have Indians, and this is from our own statistics. And I'm picking it up because for the longest time, for the last 20 years, most of women who give birth are between 25 to 29 years of age. However, the last 20 years, things changed dramatically. So most of our mothers are now between ages of 30 to 34, which also means that a lot of them are not being able to conceive, as much as they wanted to. And so this story is real because it's happening in our country. And this year, in the year of the Chinese, is actually a very auspicious year because it's the year of the mystical being the dragon year. And so notice that every 12 years there's a little spike in the population because 70% of ethnicity are Chinese, and so they think it's a very auspicious year to have a baby, and they all rush with babies in the dragon years. Unfortunately, despite the dragon years, our total fertility rate has completely and continued to drop despite everything. And lastly, wasn't such an auspicious year of the tiger, very ferocious, and it dropped to below 1. So that's one of the lowest. And in Singapore, the total fertility rate now is top 2 in the world, lowest. We love to talk a lot of things, but now we're at the bottom. And I think one important thing that comes to mind, and when I was trying to help our women to conceive, and what's coming up is that as in just a few years' time, with the aging population that we are suffering, we are going to have more and more people who are going towards age above 65, and the number of people who are going to support the older generations are going to be much lesser. And this is something real. And in 2030, which is just like 6 years down, we're going to look at 3 younger persons to 1 person who is above 65. I think that is a huge health burden that we're talking about, and which means that I will never get to retire and get to work and work until the day I drop. That's something not very, very pleasant thing about. And with this is using Singapore, where I come from, as a specific kind of a case study. We know that as the years gone by, with the total fertility rate going down, what is most important, and I think at AthenaDAO, I'm talking about business and money and everything, is economy driven. So when the population goes down to a certain level, okay, with the elderly population, increasing, we are less likely to be as productive as we hope can be. And you see, Singapore loves to be in competitions. We love to be in the top 3 on everything. Now, in the last 5 years, we have been top in being the longest lived human beings in the world. But unfortunately, what we can't change is the aging process, whereby we are living longer, but also living longer in poorer health. Now, this is something that we are not very happy about, and Singapore has now moved towards trying to fund aging research, but I decided to not be totally happy about it, because I feel that in women, there's something more than just aging alone. And in women, the story is that the ovaries, reproductive organs, are the ones, pardon me, I'm an ovarian biologist by training and OBGYN, so the ovaries are my favorite organs in the women. And my aging experts or neuroscientists say different things, but I beg to differ. I think the ovaries age first. And with the ovaries aging, with the women losing their eggs, and the supporting cells, the follicular cells around it, everything else starts to decline in a woman. And that's not great. Because when now I treat women who comes into me in their early 30s and think that they want fertility, and just do a fertility assessment, and they tell me that, I have to tell them the bad truth of, I'm sorry, your ovarian reserve is this low, which means that maybe in the next 5 to 6 years you may be going to early menopause, and then I have to give the whole story. And they start to cry because they came in asking me to help them to conceive. I need to tell them 5 years time, get prepared for menopause and all the bad things associated with it. Now that's not a very nice thing to inform a woman. And I think, importantly, I will still get my neuroscientist on my side, because there's this crosstalk always between the ovaries and the brain itself. And we know that the younger ovary looks, I like to use this word, they look succulent, and juicy and lovely. But when I did all these surgeries, I think my OBGYN colleagues will know, when you go into a surgery in older women, you try to find the strict atrophic ovaries that look shrunken and dried and shriveled like a prune. and when it's that stage, those women are not very happy in general, and their health are actually not that great anymore. So I think, how do we reconcile this fact? And I think as an OBGYN, when I do my ultrasounds, when I look at the ovaries on ultrasound images, I can tell myself, this ovary is easily picked up, nice and oval, and then I saw something really tiny, I couldn't find it, and it looks very... I have concerns about this woman's fertility and her long-term health. And I think this is a slide that we haven't educated women enough. But I think everyone here will be advocates together with me, because the rate at which a fertility declines for women is really, really much faster than what we think it is. It is not a gradual loss. The trajectory is that most women between 18 and 31 have their fertility still quite optimal, although the fall is quite gentle. But once you go above 30, 31, going on to 40, the steep decline of fertility happens. Okay? And of course, the oocyte, the egg, is actually the largest cell in the human body. And to me, it's fascinating because they are what carry so much things. And I know Lene here looks at mitochondria. Mitochondria is a big thing in the egg, human eggs. And because something happens during the aging process, so as a woman ages, as egg quality goes down, the number of abnormal eggs carrying abnormal number of chromosomes for abnormal pregnancies also increases as a woman's age. So when we tell women that miscarriage is actually not something that's so uncommon, most women don't want to be fed. But the truth is, an overall 1 to 4 to 5 women miscarry. That's actually quite common, but actually goes to age 40. The miscarriage rate goes to 1 to 2. And so this is something that's real. People don't want to talk about it, but reproductive aging is causing this process to happen. And I think one important thing is that it's not just about the loss of fertility here we're talking about. We also talk about reproductive health span. Everything in a woman. Neurocognitive, cardiovascular health, metabolic, sexual health. Please, intimacy is important. I always tell couples that don't forget to have sex with your partner. Okay, that's very important. And to keep a healthy lifestyle, you need to have good muscles and bones. And if you go to frailty, you got osteoporosis as you get older. These are all nasty things that women should have. So a lot of time when we talk about science is, can we delay reproductive aging? Something that was bothering me all the while, because CDC has shown this, right? We talked about egg freezing earlier on. We said that women should get eggs frozen as young as possible, and we see this graphic to your left, that women who are using donor oocytes, the pregnancy rates remains very constant, even though when they are up to 40-45. However, if they use their own eggs, the pregnancy rates drop very, very sharply and dismally to below less than 5% once they hit about 40. So what I'm trying to say is that if you use a young egg, yes, you can get pregnant even when you're older. But are we going to change anything? Okay, there's something that as obstetrician, because I still do deliver babies, and I have a few women. Yes, I still do. and I help someone over 40 to go through IVF. She has good ovarian reserves, thank goodness. Yes, I give her blastocysts. But at 41, when I put the blastocyst back into her body, her womb is good. It carries the young fetus, but she develops maternal aging problems. She has preeclampsia, which is a condition where her blood pressure goes really high, and she loses protein in urine, and she got really sick. And the little one doesn't grow up in the womb. It becomes smaller than expected. Up to a point that her blood pressure is hard to control, her life is in danger, the little one's life is at risk, so I have to do a C-section emergency at 26 plus weeks. Now, I onto the burden of premature babies and all the things that's with premature babies. I don't think that's really great, if that's what we're going to see in the real world. So egg freezing to me is an option, it's a choice, but are we solving the part about maternal aging? Are we solving things that happens to her womb, to her lifestyle, things like that? I think we have a lot to discuss further on. So just bring back us to this picture about what happens if the ovaries or the follicles estrogens dropped. What happens that there's everything that happens to women, from her cardiometabolic health, her bones, her muscles, even her immune system actually changes with reproductive aging. And there's so much more we need to understand. And just because of one little thing that a woman has in her life, which are her ovaries inside her, it causes such a huge systemic change inside her. I think we have a lot more to learn and study and to push this area forwards. And I think most important is that a lot of people just feel that reproductive health and reproductive fitness is just for fertility. But what I want to propose here is that actually your reproductive fitness and your reproductive health is the sign associated to your health span. So this is as early in 2010, people have looked at reproductive aging as consequences for general health. But most important, recently, as always, the Danish group have lovely cohorts there, and they have seen that women who undergo assisted reproductive technology, so they try to get as many eggs as possible, those who actually got very low numbers, and even though they are young women, they tend to have higher risk of developing age-related diseases. And I'm talking about here risks such as cardiovascular diseases, frailty, osteoporosis later on in life. So there is something that's going on, that the ovaries, once are not doing so great, the entire health of the woman is affected downstream. So it's something that we need to look into, invest further. And this story always pop in my head, like, why are human beings chosen to be the one having menopause or reproductive aging? Because in the whole species that we looked at, we did this huge review, and we're going to see that in some toothed whales and in women, they undergo menopause. I mean, in whales, yeah, it works. The grandmothers protect the birthing mothers in the open sea, protect their daughters and their grandchildren. She has a big role to play. But what about in modern time humans? What do women do? Why do they live such a long time in a post-reproductive state and not so healthy? Maybe there's something evolution about it as well. So I would propose to our scientists here, and also the potential investors that we're talking about, how do we change this reproductive inevitability to something that we want to move towards longevity, healthy longevity? Preservation of ovarian tissues, eggs, it's fine. But can we have something that do more than that, that really keep these ovaries younger, right? So that we will stop not just the loss of fertility, but we give them an option for fertility. An option, I'm not trying to propound to deliver 60 or 70-year-old mummies. That is quite stressful as an OB. But really, I want women to live longer, healthier lives. They are still productive, they are healthy. They do not become an economic burden just because they're aged, but rather they still contribute to society, contribute every part, of the community. And I think that quite a number of studies that we have shown, and I personally picked up, that my own studies, for the fact that it's very Asian focused. And the reason why I put out was that there is something different between Asian and non-Asian women when it comes to their ovarian health and ovarian reserves. And this is something that we have shown that, in certain genome-wide association studies actually, that women who are having ethnic specificity gene variant could interact with the environment differently, such that their ovarian lifespan can be affected. I mean, this is just the initial studies, and more studies will come, more courses to look at, and something that I would like to discuss further. And this condition, positive ovarian syndrome, that I think is something now close to heart, because when I look after women with PCOS, who comes for fertility, I feel that we should change the narrative. It should not be, oh, you have PCOS, you're not going to get pregnant at all. Rather, these women could be the story of ovarian longevity. Why? Because from the earliest days, as early as 2004, there are some studies and observations that shows that women with this condition may have the ovarian reserves fall at a much slower rate than women that is normal. And my group is now trying to write submit a manuscript that we actually saw in our own women in Asia as well, something similar. And what we also saw in other groups that are looking at PCOS is that, those who have PCOS actually has a higher susceptibility alleles to having a higher ovarian reserves, as well as potentially later menopause. Now, is that a good thing or bad thing? Well, I think overall it's not such a bad thing, right? Because we know the bad effects of lacking female hormones, and having a later menopause means you're going to reproductive aging later. And therefore, we think that this later menopause means that it delays ovarian aging, and it also means possibly more efficient use of the ovarian reserves that a woman probably has. And so when she comes to me at 38 years old, she's more likely to be able to be successful with assisted reproductive techniques, or even on her own once she ovulates to conceive and get pregnant, which is what, in the case of women looked after, I think they're actually good candidates. I developed a few mummies with PCOS in the late 30s, and the babies are fine. And she's fine, she's doing well. So ultimately, what I want to really, really hope that everybody here could work towards is actually provide this personalized reproductive health care for every single woman. We know that ovaries behave differently, we know that ethnicity, genetics play a part in it. We also know that even for me, when I do lots of IVF, the RT outcomes actually differ when I look after a woman of Chinese descent versus other Asian ethnicities versus Caucasian women as well. So what we did in a review here is that we saw that there are quite a different genes associated with ovarian folliculogenesis and ovarian function and ovarian reserves, and there seems to be linked to their reproductive outcomes. And now this study is very interesting because they try to compare Caucasian women and Chinese women, and this is the interesting part whereby you see an inflection point. So in the Asian women, we just looked at the orange line over there, they seem to be having higher ovarian reserve when they are younger, below age 25. But however, after the inflection point, after 25, you see that the green line, which is the Caucasian women ovarian reserve, didn't start as high, but didn't fall as fast. So that, it seems to, look at what I see sometimes clinically, that Caucasian women, even though they are in the later age group, they don't seem to do so badly. They still can get pregnant in later age. Probably because their ovarian reserves are declining at a much slower rate than compared to Chinese women. But this is based on one study. Like I say, we need more, larger cohorts to really study this phenomenon and to get this together. And this is something that I try to replicate together with a group of other IVF doctors around the region. And we try to put the ovarian reserves for women over time in the Asian population. And I think that it's interesting the fact that, it shows the same picture. And it shows that by the time they hit 35, the ovarian reserve drops below 2 nanograms, which is still not so bad, but they still don't do very well. and it seems to go down a bit faster than expected. And with that, I hope that I have painted the right picture and approach for everybody who's coming up here to share their work. And also welcome anyone who's still interested in Singapore, sunny Singapore. And 25th, 26th April, we have this conference. We're going to have more conversations here. So please be here to sign, and then there's a QR code that you can look at it and also register for it. And with that, thank you very much for your time. And
any questions?
yes, Lini.
You know, I was going to have a question. I really am interested in the AMH cohort. One of your last slides. Thank you. One of your last slides.
Yeah.
So, what was the end of the population that you studied?
Well, this group of women, it was a multi-central sort of just data collection. So there's about 4,000 over women.
Okay.
Of various Asian ethnicities.
I'm going to read this. I'm going to take a picture so I can read this. But did you see any difference? You were intimating that there was a difference between maybe Chinese, Caucasian, Indian ethnicities. Did you see any difference?
Well, we see more difference between PCOS and non-PCOS works. Yeah, that's obviously different. There is some slight differences between the different ethnicities, although we couldn't sort of have a very statistically significant numbers, because again, when you compare Vietnamese women to Indonesian women, to Malay women, to Indian women, right. The numbers probably are still too small within each ethnicity to see that.
Because the number one question I get is, oh, I got my AMH a year ago, I'm good, everything is fine. So I think I'll freeze my eggs in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. Yeah. And so I guess my question to you is, from the data that you got in this study, do you have a way to help people understand what their AMH will be in a couple of years, or do you tell them, listen, it's a Photoshop, it's a photo, it's a snapshot,
yes,
you can't rely on that now,
right,
forever?
Well, my take is AMH is a good marker, it's a current available clinical marker that we can use, but it's not the best. Okay. Because the other thing that we don't know is the quality of the eggs, and it still goes with the maternal age itself. Of course, I will correlate with the age of the woman as well. I mean, if she's at 31, I'll say probably not wait till too long. Maybe just consider a year. If you can't find the true love of your life, then please come get an egg-free, But if you're 35, or even in early 30s, I'll still, give caution that, you must still repeat that in a year's time and see what the trajectory is like. Okay. Because from the graphs that we have, the trajectory actually goes down quite quickly after 30 years old. Okay. I would love to use this in my patient education, because everyone thinks AMH, it's fine, I'm good, I'm wonderful. Yeah, so. Not that true. There's other things that can affect the AMH levels. If you're smoking, if you take any other kind of treatments, birth control pills, all this can actually affect this level. And are you interested, my last question, are you interested in looking at maybe the lifestyle data from these individuals? So plant-based diet, exercise, acupuncture, anything else, the things that we never really get a chance to look at? Oh, that is planning upcoming study. I knew it! Yes, definitely. Yes.
The decline in fertility you guys are demonstrating, can you compare it to other, like for example, Chinese population in China? Do you have any trend or hints about like environmental factor or lifestyle factor? I mean, beyond pollution, like external factor, because there was some stuff like overall oocyte and sperm quality are declining everywhere in the world.
So thank you for that question. We are definitely planning for a study on that. I think the whole world is now talking about microplastics and how it affects, say, in the placenta, how it gets transmitted perhaps the next generation of gonads. So that's at least something on the horizon. And actually, in Singapore itself, we have a project Heat Safe that I'm a co-investigator on. And we actually saw that, even in Singapore, which is equatorial in temperature, the fluctuations is not so great per year. We saw that sperm counts drop drastically, but even when a man is exposed to very high ambient temperatures the whole time. So I think the environment, the lifestyle factors have a strong play in reproductive health, and that's definitely one of my upcoming studies, which I'm really looking at already, in a group of preconception women who actually have birth data. We're looking at all the demographics and everything that she's exposed to as well. So we're already starting that.
And can I just do a follow-up one? And what about stress? Have you guys any stress, are women in higher, I don't know, stress position, more less fertile than women that are more, I mean, it's hard.
Yes, great question. So with that, I think Singapore, I think I have fellow Singaporean in the audience, they know how stressed Singapore is and how stressed our women are. And there have been evidence, especially on the ovarian biology aspects, that actually if you are more stressed, there are evidence of a higher reactive oxygen species that are present in the blood and follicular fluid. So I think there's something there that we need to look at, and there's also observation data that shows that couples who are undergoing IVF and who are highly stressed don't perform as well. So one of my collaborators from the nursing school actually is helping me to run a small trial intervention using psychological intervention to try to look at these couples and see how they can journey through. But again, there's a lot of other confounding variables that I think may affect the ultimate outcome of fertility, which I think we need personalized healthcare. Yes?
Yeah, so I know in Malaysia, PCOS and endometriosis diagnosis times are like much shorter than, for example, in North America. And I know like one potential factor for this is the prescription of birth control. Have you seen, I'm not sure if you have, but have you seen a difference between egg quality between those who have cycled off of birth control and those who have never had it at all?
Very good question. I got this asked so many times that people saying if I use birth control, it's going to affect my fertility, it's going to protect my ovarian reserves. And I think that we still need science because we don't know why, but the primordial follicles still continue to deplete on its own despite using birth control pills. So birth control pills just stop the follicles from being recruited, from ovulating, but that's it. It doesn't really protect the reserves. So your reserves can still go down as you age. And if you're not living a good lifestyle, for example, smoking and things like that, you get exposed to this, and your ovarian reserves can still get depleted and quality of eggs can still drop.
So just as a follow-up, is it possible for your ovarian reserve to recover from using birth control if it's still like depleting?
Yes, so usually what we do is that after you stop birth control pills for about 3 months at least, then we repeat the serum AMH levels again to see what's the true levels. Yeah, so it's not supposedly a recovery, but AMH is a very unique hormone. It only comes from small antral follicles. I mean, this follicles is from the primordial follicle pool, and then now has been recruited and selected to grow and ovulate. So they come from this that have been grown and rescued from inhibition from birth control pills. So it's sort of recovered, as you said.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Laura. I'll answer your question.
I have a question about data. The data sets. When we're talking about thinking of things by ethnicity or globally, it's obviously very different. Even in Singapore, the different ethnicities are different. Because healthcare is nationalized, correct? So has that made it, technically, is that kind of made it easier in terms of data collection, sharing? Do you have robust data sets in the current
I would say that we have data sets for fertility, but it's under close scrutiny of the Ministry of Health, and because we have this what we call PDPA Act, so it's Personalized Data Protection Act, and this act really is in power, and we really have to guard all our clinical data very strictly. So it's not open for public review, and we need to write in formally, to get data for academic or even research purposes. Yeah. So it's not easy access.
Oh, it's not an open.
No, it's not open access. Yes. Clear data to us is very protected because of this act in place. Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah, one of the big things to tackle in women's health research, the data.
Yeah. Access to data, it's really not easy. There must be a strong, reason why we get this, and I think we are slowly moving towards that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and attention.